move a little closer so you can hear me. Excuse me. This is a very unusual course. Most of the time you hear of a science fiction course in which you watch a series of science fiction films and you look at the patterns of the films and analyze them according to what has happened in a society at the time, how they predicted historical events, how they reflect historical events. That is only one aspect of this course. The course is really about three things. The chronology of selected classic science fiction films, and those films which have come from novels: Contact, War of the Worlds, Andromeda Strain by Michael Crichton, Solaris by Stanislav Lem. We'll read those and we will analyze the films according to the structure, how they digress from the novels, how they compare with the novels, in which direction did they, how the films reflect society. What do they say about government policy? What does the science fiction say about the economics at the time? What does it say about the technology being developed? This is all standard stuff. The second part of the course will be an integration of that with humankind's venture into space. We will show actual archival footage, beginning with the launch of Sputnik in 1957 of October of 57, all the way to the current planning of the probes that are going outside the galaxy, to interviews with Michio Kaku, with Carl Sagan, with Stephen Hawking, about the nature of extraterrestrial life. The third part of the course, which is integrated together, is the examination and the controversy of extraterrestrial life and mankind's contact with it. In association with that, we will have two guest speakers. One whose name is Leslie Kean, who wrote the book. If you look at the screen, she has a book called UFOs. Thank you. Thanks. She has a book called UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record. In the last 10 years, most of the major world governments have declassified their information. And the numbers of cases that are unexplainable, 90% of the reports that are given are explainable reports. 10%, between 5 and 10%, are completely unexplainable. And they are proven, in other words, they're on the basis of radar, photographs, videos from astronauts, from cosmonauts. The Phoenix Lights incident, which happened near Phoenix, in which 10 to 20,000 people saw a UFO the size of 8 battleships fly 1,000 feet over the city in silence, and it was witnessed by the governor of Arizona himself, who went on national television and said that 10 years later. This book, Leslie Kean, the author, spent 10 years researching this book. In order to access certain files, she had to use the Freedom of Information Act to free up information in order to write this book. This is an incredible book. It's classy, it's accurate, it's a superb piece of journalism. She is coming to the class. She cannot wait to come to this class and talk to the students about what she discovered. And she has also asked, let me see if I go ahead here. Oh, there we go. Now, if you notice on the slide here, at the top, there is a professor who's very well known. You may have seen him. He teaches in New York. He's an astrophysicist. He's a theoretical physicist. His name is Michio Kaku. He is the new, actually there's a debate right now, there's a competition, but he is considered the new Carl Sagan. He's very famous. Anytime they have, we were talking here earlier, anytime they have a television, anything that happens having to do with the weather or the stars or an aurora borealis showing, you know, people see the aurora, they call him in to explain what is going on, even though he's a theoretical physicist. He read her book, and of all the books written, he said, this book, or you can see what he says here. I'm going to grab the mic as my... He says, at last, a serious and thoughtful book about this controversial subject. Skeptics and true believers will find a treasure trove of insightful and eye-opening information. This book is bound to set the gold standard for UFO research. He went on MSNBC, CNN, talk shows to talk about this book. And he said, this is as close to the smoking gun as you can get. And he's basically a scientist who only believes in what you can see evident. Now, we are also going to see an interview with him. In the book, there is a colonel, his name is Colonel Charles Halt. He is interviewed. Colonel Halt is a decorated United States Air Force colonel who was the head of the RAF Bentwaters Base in East Anglia, England. On December the 26th and December the 27th in 1980, he was the acting director of the entire base. This was a very large base in England. A UFO set down right outside the American base. It was reported by 8 security personnel. He was not there the first night. The second night it was reported. He went out with these personnel, so there wasn't just his witness testimony, and he was 4 feet from this UFO. He recorded it. They made imprints of the indentations in the ground from a neighbor who had some plaster of Paris, and he talks about it at length. Since then, Colonel Halt has been interviewed. He has been on every major station. He's been on Discovery, the History Channel. This is a very famous incident called the Rendlesham Forest incident. He is also coming to class with Leslie Kean. He's coming to class, and he's really looking forward to it. I speak to both of them every week. Leslie is in France right now doing a book signing. The other, this is Leslie. That is Colonel Halt, and earlier, that is Colonel Halt. He will be coming to speak. The other book that we're reading is a book called Witness to Roswell. It took, I believe, about 12 years to research this book. It was on the famous Roswell incident that happened in 1947, in which there was an enormous cover-up. And it's a very different book than Leslie's book. The person that wrote the introduction to this book is Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who was the Apollo 14 astronaut. And Dr. Mitchell wrote the introduction to this because he's very aware of some of these events and the people that were involved with this. We're going to read this book. This is one of the films that we're going to run through a series of films that we're going to see. We're going to see brief excerpts. Now this is back to the science fiction part. Trip to the Moon, Méliès, very famous early man imagination. Then we're going to see clips from Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon. We're going to move up through time. Classic film directed by Robert Wise, The Day the Earth Stood Still. We're going to see this. We're going to talk about these, analyze them. We're going to look at these from the standpoint of what is the film and what is this genre saying about government intervention, government policy, social change, technological revolution, the digital age, the atomic age, the Cold War, all things that are pertinent in a society that make a society operate. War of the Worlds, the first one, 1953. Then we're going to see clips from the recent one, which is the one with Tom Cruise, as a comparison contrast. Twilight Zone, very famous episode called The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, that deals, many of you may have, see some of you shaking your heads, you may have seen this. It deals with so many issues. Issues of racism, issues of segregation, issues of, it's a fascinating social construct and social commentary about people in community and what happens when there is an outside force coming into your community, whether your community is a small neighborhood or an entire planet, as in War of the Worlds. This was also a very famous, this is Dwayne Barry, the episode Dwayne Barry from the X-Files. We're going to see this. If you haven't seen this, this is an incredible episode. 2001: A Space Odyssey, the classic. We're going to see that. The Andromeda Strain, Michael Crichton, who wrote it. Robert Wise ended up directing the film, which is a brilliant film, in which, interestingly enough, this film, the science in this film is so accurate. It's amazing, and it's because Michael Crichton was he was a doctor. He was a scientist, and everything he wrote was based on scientific fact. We're going to see an interview with Michael Crichton. He passed away not too many years ago. Close Encounters. Everybody has seen or heard probably Close Encounters, but we're going to look at it through a different lens. We're going to examine all the patterns that we've seen. Alien, directed by Ridley Scott. We're going to look at this. We're also going to look at these as films. So we're going to look at them as films, as visual literature, as commentaries on society, of communities in isolation. Men in Black. Have to have some humor in the class. If you haven't seen Men in Black, you've got to take the class. Just to see Men in Black. Contact, brilliant film with Jodie Foster. Tremendous film. This is a film that not a lot of people know about. It's a brilliant psychological science fiction film called Solaris. Stanisław Lem is an incredible writer. We're going to read his novel. We're going to look at the differences between the novel and the similarities of the novel and the film. And the film is stunningly brilliant. It's very similar in some ways to 2001: A Space Odyssey. Out of the Blue. Out of the Blue is the documentary that was a special on the History Channel. And it has footage that they got through the Freedom of Information Act. Leslie Kean is in this. She's in the film. Colonel Halt is in the film. There are interviews with some presidents in the film. There are interviews with top pilots, captains, top officials in the world who have actually had experiences either in sightings, seeing things, or knowing someone. There are images in this. I know a lot about this issue, and I was shocked when I saw this. It's so well done.
I have to act as a government censor.
It's it. 1 more minute. Is it 1 minute?
Yeah.
John Mack. This man, John Mack, was an esteemed psychiatrist at Harvard. He taught at Harvard Medical School. He wrote a book called Passport to the Cosmos. The year before this book came out, 2 years before it came out, he won the Pulitzer Prize for writing a book on T.E. Lawrence, Lawrence of Arabia. This is a really smart guy. This book, he did a lot of research, he interviewed hundreds of people, is about alien abduction. This is no dumbbell. This is a very smart guy. We're going to read this book. So that's the class. We're going to have a wiki and a blog for you to interact. We're going to have some very unusual assignments, papers. We're going to have group assignments where you create different topics that you find interesting and take you into a different area of research and curiosity.